Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Today we talk justice reform, and we point out how critical this area really is. We have with us the Director of the Justice Reform Implementation Unit, Althea McBean, and she'll be telling us of the priorities of this unit. Thank you so much for your company. Good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You know, this matter of the backlog in the court system is such an unnerving one for many persons. What is it that the government is doing to deal with this backlog?
Well, firstly, the Ministry of Justice has embarked on a comprehensive campaign to modernize and reform the justice system for quite a few years now. And one of the steps currently being implemented to address this backlog is firstly to implement a statistics case management system which will adequately quantify the number of cases that are in backlog, which are basically in the system over a certain accepted number of years.
So we don't know actually?
Well, we have some figures. However, a sustained project has been in stream since July to quantify or to log the cases on an ongoing basis as they come into the system and track them throughout the proceedings. So we'll know the disposal rate, the current number of cases at any given time in any court, how long they have been on the list, how many mention dates have been set, etc., so that we would know the disposal rates. The figures, studies have been done and counts have been taken, but some of those have been inflated because based on how they were calculated. Okay. So charges were being counted as opposed to one case. So that tended to inflate the figures. The traffic court matters also inflated the figures. So this will give an accurate assessment, and from there, the government and the court management and the Chief Justice will be able to know what courts will need certain resources, etc., and how to address those cases.
So every court now has been equipped with that system.
All the parish courts, formerly resident magistrates courts, have been equipped. The Supreme Court is in progress, and the Court of Appeal has been equipped with the statistical system.
Yes. What are the other initiatives which are being taken to deal with making the justice system more effective?
Well, several steps are being taken. Infrastructure, quite a bit of work has been done in terms of the infrastructure of the courts. The new Supreme Court building north was opened about 2 years ago. The registry completed moving this year over to the new building. So the capacity, additional criminal courts will be extended in the old Supreme Court building. There have also been work in terms of additional courts in St. Elizabeth and St. Thomas. And legislation has been implemented to expedite the process of cases in the courts. The preliminary inquiries are no longer being used. Committal proceedings have taken the place of those. And committal proceedings, for serious matters, they should be completed within 6 months in the parish courts before those serious cases such as murder and rape and serious wounding offenses go up to the circuit courts. Technology has been improved in the court system, and we're now looking at improving the processes in the courts.
Yes. In terms of mediation, yes, how much progress has been made in terms of using that as a means?
Quite a bit of progress has been made in the area of mediation. Mediation is another area of reform because that's an alternative method of resolving disputes. And in many jurisdictions, quite a few cases are disposed of in this way, rather than all the cases going to trial. Because even in developed countries, their court system couldn't manage all the cases if they were to go to trial. So they find other ways or means of disposing of the cases. In the Supreme Court, every civil matter has to go to mediation before it is set for trial. And it has helped roughly 40% of the cases are completed by way of mediation in the Supreme Court. In the parish court, it is not mandatory as it is in the Supreme Court, but steps are being taken to improve and increase the use of mediation in the parish courts.
Yeah. So much to talk about with regard to justice reform. The Director of the Justice Reform Implementation Unit, Althea McBean, is our guest on Issues and Answers. We take a break, but we'll be right back.
Motorists, know your rights as road users. If you're stopped by the police in a road check, the police have the right to ask for your driver's license and vehicle documents. If you don't have the documents on you, you can ask for 5 days to provide them at a convenient police station. If you don't have vehicle insurance, you can be prosecuted and face the court. If you fail to renew the registration license, the police are entitled to seize your vehicle. If the police wish to search your vehicle, they should tell you the reasonable grounds for wanting the search. If you are given a ticket, sign it only if you plan to pay the fine and not contest the charge in court. And please be reminded, children under 18 years must wear a seatbelt, even if they are seated in the back. Know your rights. Knowledge of the traffic road code makes it easier to work with the police as they do their job to make the roads safer for you and everyone else.
Welcome back. Althea McBean, Director of the Justice Reform Implementation Unit, is our guest. What are some of the other initiatives under the very broad Justice Reform Program?
Well, plea bargaining is a major initiative. Again, that's another way of disposing of some of the matters without going to trial. And legislation has been passed in recent years, in fact last year, to give discounts for guilty pleas. However, our Minister of Justice is now embarking on a more enhanced and robust plea bargaining regime where more matters will be disposed of by way of guilty pleas. And again, in other jurisdictions, up to 90% of their cases are disposed of by plea bargaining. So we are looking to increase those numbers here.
And this again will reduce the backlog.
Reduce the backlog and reduce the caseload, which is the total number of cases in the courts. So that will assist as well. It will also reduce the length of time the matters take in court and prevent the victims from having to go through that ordeal again in the courtroom. So that is one major initiative. The use of technology is a major initiative. Digital recording, where evidence in the parish courts, formerly resident magistrates courts, the judges take the evidence by hand. They handwrite the evidence. So the case can only go as fast as the judge can write. So there will be digital recording in those courts.
That's significant.
Yes, and also the transcripts of the case will be prepared quicker rather than someone, a shorthand writer, having to type out all of that to produce a transcript if it has to go on appeal or if for any reason the evidence has to be reviewed. Video link evidence, so witnesses do not necessarily have to come back to Jamaica if they have left. Vulnerable witnesses such as children can give evidence from a remote location. That will assist because many times there are challenges with witnesses coming to court. Those are some of the technology, electronic filing of documents. This will assist as well with speeding up matters. There have been amendments to the jury system, and that will continue again with a electronic jury management system. And additional legislation will be in place, as well as modernizing some of the processes in our courts.
In terms of the use of technology, would you say that significant advances have been made, and what will be some of the other advances that will be made in this 2017?
Well, some advances have been made, but gradually. One of the challenges have been the infrastructure of the courts. For example, with the electronic statistics system that was introduced in St. Elizabeth, for example, the electrical framework couldn't accommodate it. So, in fact, they have a laptop. So, that the infrastructure has to be bolstered in order to accommodate it. The video link, the courtrooms have to be set up to accommodate that as well, and as well as the other locations locally where persons will give evidence. So, quite a bit of work is being done, preparatory work. The contracts have to be executed and the tendering process. So that is underway for quite a bit of the technology that's to be implemented.
What's happening with regard to night courts?
Night courts, some courts currently, the local level, the parish courts have night courts. We are aware that there are in 9 parishes, night courts sit. So the Ministry of Justice wishes to collaborate with the Chief Justice, because for any work in the courts, the ministry has to collaborate with the Chief Justice and the courts to increase the number of night courts to, again, address some of those cases that have been on the list for some time, and also to speed up the current matters that come in, because you also want to deal with those in a timely manner. So additional night courts are on the books.
And the issue of increase in the number of judges, the appointment of judges.
That is another area. In fact, not only the increase, but to meet the full capacity of the judges, there should be 40 Supreme Court judges. I think there's capacity for 70 parish court judges, and that number is not filled on a consistent basis. Judges retire, or they leave from the lower court to go up to the higher court. So to keep that maximum capacity filled, as well as the extension of the Court of Appeal, because there are only 2 divisions now sitting in the Court of Appeal, and 3 judges sit in each court there. So there is space on the establishment, the number of judges for 12 judges, but because there is no additional courtroom or space, you don't have that additional division. So with the expansion of the Court of Appeal, which is another major infrastructure item on the books, we will be able to have an additional division in the Court of Appeal.
Yeah. And finally, what would you say is the overall thrust of the justice reform program? How would you summarize this program?
Well, the overall thrust of the justice reform program is to modernize the justice system, to have matters disposed of in a fair and timely manner, and also to ensure that there's more access to justice to the Jamaican people, that everyone has access to justice when they need it, and also to ensure that there is trust and confidence in the justice system.
Thank you very much.
And thank
Althea
you.
McBean is the Director of the Justice Reform Implementation Unit, which is a part of the Ministry of Justice. Justice reform is one of the significant planks of the government. We thank you very much for your company today on Issues and Answers. Next week I'll be back. Until then, Ian Boyne wishing you a pleasant day.